everybody, this video is on the topic of teaching your dog not to jump up when greeting. To set your dog up for success, you can train the greeting as a behavior in training sessions rather than trying to train your dog in those real-life situations where he's overexcited. So during your training process, you might need to use management and prevention where you prevent your dog from jumping up on your guests or doing undesirable behaviors as you train your dog what you do want him to do when around guests and greeting people. Are you ready, Wishy? So I like to add a cue to this behavior, a verbal cue, wish-free, but dogs can learn situational cues, but I like to give a release to the guest. So if I don't want my dog to meet a certain guest, I can just not cue the behavior of going to say hi. Are you ready? So I'm going to say, go say hello, which is going to be my cue for saying hello to guests. So I'm going to say that cue, go say hello. And first I'm just going to mark and reinforce my dog for standing in front of me directly and not moving her feet. So I'm clicking and feeding her for standing still like this. Go say hello. You can also choose to put the treat down in front of the person or yourself like this if your dog takes treats hard when your dog is a little bit excited. Awesome. The next step is clicking and reinforcing your dog for making eye contact with you. Good. So basically, you want your dog to station in front of the guest and look up at their face. Awesome. Awesome. Go say hello. Good. Good. Get it? Say hello. Awesome. If your dog keeps looking at the treats in your hand, you can check out my video on how to train your dog to make eye contact with you using an attention noise. Good job. I like to train the standing position as the greeting position for dogs like Wish, who at some point get a little bit overwhelmed with too much handling and too much social interaction, and she can easily back away, where if I ask her to sit for guests, she might be less likely to be able to tell us that she's had enough by simply backing away. If you have a happy-go-lucky dog that's extremely comfortable with being handled, you can use sitting as the greeting behavior. So to do this, you're going to say your cue, go say hello, and then when the dog gets to you, you're going to cue the dog to sit, either with a visual or a verbal cue, and then you're going to see if the dog might offer sitting before you say sit or give the hand signal. So I'm going to throw the treat, or you could simply feed the dog and then walk away if you don't want to put treats down and say go say hello, and then sit. Good. Now I'm going to show you a video clip of my friend, Sarah Surritt, who's a professional dog trainer from Get Positive Dog Training, who's training a large breed dog not to jump up by teaching the dog what she does want the dog to do instead of jumping up. Hi. Hi. If your dog is comfortable with handling, you can add handling into the greeting behavior. So after you've cued your dog, go say hello, and your dog is stationed in front of you, you can then start to handle your dog in the ways that guests might handle your dog, but first starting off with very calm and gentle interactions. So you might just have your hand underneath your dog's chin. Good. Mark and feed the side of the face. Good. If your dog is uncomfortable or gets excited and jumps up when people bend over your dog, you can practice bending over. Good. And marking and reinforcing your dog for doing nothing. All these type of interactions that guests do, staring at your dog, petting them, can tend to make your dog want to jump up. So by rehearsing all of these in training sessions when the dog is less excited, you'll be teaching your dog not to jump up in these situations. Are you ready? Good. We can teach our dogs to be calm and confident through training in training sessions with the different ways that people might handle and interact with your dog, However, in real life situations, if you see someone doing something that's too over-arousing or your dog's just not feeling comfortable, it's important to speak up and ask the person to stop or move your dog away from the person. Splash, my Border Collie, will quickly back up if she's not enjoying an interaction, and that's a really great sign for guests because they see it with their eyes that the dog is actually not enjoying it, but some dogs will stay with the guest looking miserable as the guest rubs them obsessively or does something that they really don't like. Another part of the greeting that tends to make dogs want to jump up towards the face of the guest is the vocalizations that the guest is making. Now you can tell your guests to stay calm around your dog, but sometimes that just doesn't happen and they can become overexcited by your dog and then start making lots of exciting noises that will tend to want to elicit your dog to jump at their face. Now when dogs make exciting noises, it attracts other dogs to come towards their face, so naturally dogs are going to want to jump up if you make exciting noises and seem excited yourself. Are you ready? So I'm going to say, hi! Good. Hi! Good. Hi! Hi! Oh, what a cute puppy! What a cute boy! What a cute boy! Oh, boy! Hi! Hi! Hi!
Say hello. Good.
Practice with helpers. When family or guests have been over long enough that your dog is more relaxed, you can practice all the different aspects of the greeting: the approach, eye contact, handling, movement, and speech. You will have faster results training when your dog has had time to calm down than if you are always trying to train your dog the moment the guest arrives.
Good. Say hello. Good. 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 Say hello. Good. That's good. Awesome. Say hello. Can we go sniff? Good. Hello, Michelle. Hi, Hayden. Hi. Good. Now I'm more excited. Hi, beautiful duck. What's your name? What's your name? Good. Hi, Halo. Good.
If your dog jumps up, it means you need to lower criteria. Dogs can be excited by eye contact, handling, movement, and the voice of the person, so reducing these will get your training back on track. If you have taught your dog to be comfortable with handling, you can simply remove your dog gently as soon as possible after he jumps up. If your dog is not comfortable with being touched yet, he should not be put in the situation where he can jump up. You can also interrupt jumping with a cue that you've previously trained with positive reinforcement. However, if your dog is too excited, he might be too excited to be able to listen to you. So you could either call your dog away from the guest, tell your dog back up, wish back up, good. You could cue your dog to sit, which is incompatible with having their paws up on you, or ask your dog to lay down. You want to make sure to take the appropriate safety precautions depending on the size of your dog. If you have a dog that can become overexcited when guests arrive, you can set your dog up for success by either meeting the guest outside, where you can go for a short walk before the greeting, or you can have your guest ignore your dog and chat to you while you work with your dog on a settle while on a leash at a distance your dog can relax.
I'll have to tell you all about it later.
Mark and calmly reinforce every step you take towards the guest at first. If the dog stops eating treats, you can say, "Let's go," and move further away from the guest where your dog can work on a settle. Then, when your dog is eating food again, you can practice the greeting. If the dog is too excited to eat food, he most likely is too excited to greet your guest.
Yes,
Good.
what a good job,
Good.
Lucy. What a good girl. Yes.
If your dog is too focused on you and the food that you're holding, you need to wait for the moment that the dog is looking at the guest to mark and feed. This is because if he just stares at you and the food, he will not learn to not jump up when the food is out of the picture and he's staring straight at the guest.
Good. Say hello. Hi, Halo. Good. Hi, Halo. Good.
Hello. Hello, Halo.
Good.
It's important to understand that no matter what you train as your greeting behavior, and no matter what your dog's personality is like, that sometimes the greeting can go on for too long if the guest is very excited about seeing the dog. So it's a good idea to give your dog a break from the guest, ask your dog to come to you or say, "Let's go," and move away, and then see if your dog wants to go back. And sometimes dogs don't want to go back because they realize only at a distance that what was happening was a little overwhelming. Also, guests, if they keep on going, they can make your dog too excited, or conversely, make your dog disinterested in wanting to say hi to more guests because the guests are just being too overwhelming for the dog. So the best way to teach your dog to enjoy saying hello to guests is keeping the interaction short and giving the dog a break in between saying hello to guests. If you cue your dog to say hi to someone and your dog refuses to say hi to them, it's important to respect your dog's decision. Perhaps your dog isn't feeling very well that day, and it's not really a good idea for someone to be petting a dog that doesn't want this social interaction. Hey, Wishy. If you have a dog that can become shy, fearful, or reactive when being handled by guests or greeting guests or even yourself, it's important to seek the help from a professional trainer that doesn't use any forms of physical or psychological intimidation to help you with the training, because you might be raising criteria too quickly or not being able to read your dog's signs that he's uncomfortable or feeling conflicted with the greeting, and what you can be doing is actually teaching the dog to not enjoy greeting guests. Thank you so much for watching. I just want to give a quick shout out to one of my #1 YouTube sponsors, Bella Fiore Logotos. Can you do both paws?